Which countries don't seem dangerous, but really are? Traffic in Thailand and Vietnam. One of the highest rates of traffic fatalities in the world. Norway. Each year quite a lot of tourists die here because they underestimate the nature. People come here to get some amazing pictures like they've seen online and then don't realize that you need appropriate clothes/gear and that you should probably not take a selfie at the edge of a giant drop. Also, since it's regularly asked in r/Norway, no, you can't just go hiking in northern Norway in the winter without skis/snowshoes, especially not in avalanche-prone areas. Australia. I've met plenty of European tourists who have wanted to just drive through the outback while being woefully underprepared. Just basic stuff like not knowing what to do in an emergency and not having enough water. It's not a joke. People die out there all the time and it'll be 40 degrees plus and hundreds of kilometers before you see someone again if something goes wrong. I live in the Netherlands, and I'd say it's quite safe for tourists here. And then I remembered the time I was visiting Amsterdam and saw a sign warning tourists about some stupid gang selling white heroin as cocaine. Don't fall for the myth that anything goes in Amsterdam, people. Hard drugs are as illegal and unsafe as anywhere else. New Zealand. We don't have any animals, insects, or snakes etc. that will kill you. But we got the most amazing hole in our ozone layer. White people will get sunburned within 30 minutes in the summer unprotected. I get sunburned within 15. If I spent a whole day in the sun without protection, I'd be willing to bet I'd still be sunburned/peeling a month later. Trinidad. The capital has some of the most dangerous places on earth. Sweden. For example, it's all sleek design and meatballs until you stumble into a moose traffic jam. Reading this thread, maybe I should just stay home. While I would in no way call Denmark a dangerous place in general, there are some things that tourists are not aware of. 1. Many Germans go to vacation on the western coast of the Jutland Peninsula. 2. Many of them don't know that you do not fuck with the North Sea. Riptides are somewhat common and scary as hell. The current and waves can be more violent than you expect if you're not used to the sea. You can go swimming pretty safely, but don't be an idiot and definitely don't go out on an inflatable mattress that will float halfway to England before you realize what's going on. 2. The so-called free city of Christiania in Copenhagen can be a fun place to visit. But it is also the hub of organized crime involving drugs. In August last year, a number of innocent bystanders were caught in a gangland shooting and wounded at a bar. The man who was targeted was shot several times and died. There are gangland shootings there a couple of times a year, as well as assaults and stabbings. Also, don't take pictures when you're there. The weed dealers are not tolerant of that. 3. For the love of God, if you are not used to riding a bicycle in the city, do not rent a bike and drive around Copenhagen. We will hate you for it and you might get hurt or hurt someone else. Other than that, come enjoy Denmark. Scotland. We're fucking lethal. Iceland, known for its breathtaking natural beauty and low crime rates, Iceland seems idyllic. However, its remote location and extreme weather conditions can pose risks, especially for those unprepared for the environment. While I wouldn't say dangerous, Ireland has a strong and growing antisocial behavior problem that is not being sufficiently addressed. Jamaica. Canada is inverse Australia. In Australia, everything looks terrifying, but if you keep your distance, most of it just wants to be left alone, and most of the time, it's just as terrified of you, exception for the birds, they're just jerks. In Canada, everything looks adorable, very little of it is afraid of humans due to habituation to direct contact because no one respects the danger, and all of it will absolutely rip your throat out. That beaver can chew through a maple tree in minutes. Do you want to know what the overgrown lake rat will do to a femur? That moose can walk away from a collision with a semi-truck, weighs more than a small car, can outrun you, and will not think twice about turning you into an antler ornament. The deer will not think twice about eating you if you happen to get gored to death. I'm going to say that one again. The deer will eat you, those adorable seal pups. Mama seal is bigger than you are, and there's a reason they're effectively wolves in the water. That squirrel, oh, the squirrel is harmless, kidding, it will take your finger and scratch out both your eyes. And all of that doesn't even count the actual predators. No, those aren't puppies, kitties, and teddy bears. If you're lucky, they will remove your hand. If you are unlucky, they will remove your head. Implausibly, the only thing that isn't going to actively try to kill you are the snakes and spiders. The only common point, the birds are still jerks. Bless the cobra chicken. Honestly, we should be able to submit parts of the USA here, because Arizona gets its fair share of people who don't believe you can become dangerously overheated and dehydrated even on a trail within city limits. Especially in the summer. I don't even know why people come then. Phoenix hits 120 F regularly in the summer. If you can't fathom how hot that feels, great. Please don't hike here in the summer. Yes. The scenery is gorgeous. There are trails everywhere. It's also literally a desert and hotter than anywhere else you've ever been. Nepal. Climbing the world's highest mountains is a big seasonal tourist draw, but a certain percentage always die trying. The Netherlands. You'd be surprised about the amount of human trafficking that happens here. Canada. They've got geese. I would actually argue that New Zealand is often dangerous for tourists. Because everyone thinks it's super safe and Kiwis are friendly, tourists drop their guard and get taken advantage of. Areas like Northland, which is riddled with gangs and crime, is one place you want to stay alert. The other danger is tourists constantly falling off mountains and drowning in rivers and lakes. Ukraine. I'm kind of happy that tourists still come and leave here their money, but I don't understand them. Canada. They are so friendly, but they also have moose lurking in the woods just waiting for you to let your guard down. The UAE. Those guys can lock you up and throw away the key, and are by my estimate around 500 years off from developing the concept of due process. https://www.the-sun.com/news/405956 3/horror-brits-locked-hellish-dubai-jails. Thailand. Japan is certainly not dangerous in the grand scheme of things, but I think the OMG it's so safe thing is dramatically overhyped. The fact is that incidents in Japan simply do not get reported to the police. As an American who lived there for 4 years, I encountered a fair bit of sketchy situations, drunken violent misbehavior, outright physical abuse in families/couples, blatant theft, stalking, etc. Not one of those incidents was reported to the police. You won't ever got shot or mugged in Japan, but you certainly should maintain situational awareness. All of these comments make me want to do illegal drugs in Scandinavian countries. Belgium. I've never traveled outside of Europe, but I've never felt as unsafe as I did in Brussels. Charleroi wasn't that great either. However, Flanders was super nice and clean. The USA. Europeans don't quite understand the sheer scale of our nature and wildlife. Backpacking here isn't taking a paved trail between quaint mountain chalets without any wildlife worse than a grumpy badger, it's being the only soul for miles of rough wilderness with no cell service and potentially mountain lions and grizzly bears. If you really want the true American wilderness experience, I've heard Gates of the Arctic National Park is that to the extreme. You may have to fly into the park on a bush plane. If you run afoul of the police in Japan, they can literally make you disappear for days or weeks at a time. Often, they take their time telling your embassy that they have you, and they don't let you talk to anyone until your family gets a lawyer or your embassy involved. There's been several horror stories. Beyond that, the police can hold you basically indefinitely. Though they have to release you after a certain amount of time if you're not being prosecuted, they will happily rearrest you on your way out of the police station for other charges, and they can do this over and over until they get what they want from you, a signed confession. There's a level of tolerance in Japan, and usually foreigners are given a lot of leeway, but if you cross a line or are unlucky enough to meet a bad cop or cops, it'll end badly for you. A lot of dreamy 5-star destinations for the rich explicitly tell you do not exit the resort. You'd think it would be pretty obvious to follow that advice given where the resorts are situated, but apparently tons of people each year ignore it and go out anyways, and usually they're mugged or abducted or worse. A few answers here are seriously failing the "that don't seem dangerous" part of the deal. Who was ever saying that Mexico, Brazil, Egypt, and India were super safe places? Many parts of the United States. For example, New Orleans has a higher murder rate and overall crime than many cities in Mexico, but we have this perception of Mexico being dangerous and New Orleans as a fun party spot that you can get blackout drunk on the streets and stay safe in. Edit: some of y'all are really taking this to me saying Mexico is not dangerous instead of New Orleans is very dangerous. It's literally nestled with Mexican cities and in the top 20 dangerous cities worldwide. Reading comprehension is wild. Japan is considered much safer than many countries for sure, but in turn it gives a false sense of security. I've seen many videos of women tourists going to stores alone at night, preaching the country's safeness in it. Meanwhile, the comments of the videos are full of native Japanese women warning them to not do that. It's the country that had to resort to women train only, and obligatory phone camera shutter sound, after all. Besides that, I'm sure it's a much safer country in general, but yeah, you shouldn't be careless even in a safer country. Iceland, perhaps. Earth can crack apart, swallow you whole and create a new volcano anytime. Belize. Walking through downtown Belize City from the ferry to the bus station, buddy on a porch yells at me, "You don't go down this road, mon. You go back where you start and take taxi." Not a country, but Hawaii has tons of tourists drown every year. The water is no joke. Waves that crash right on the shoreline break necks and backs. I would call myself a strong swimmer, and I've been pulled about a quarter mile out to sea before I got out of the rip current. ITT, people letting you know that cities have bad neighborhoods. Germany. One wrong word in the Frankfurt-Offenbach area, and you'll get FCKED up real bad. Danish. When they win in soccer they go apeshit, drunk and violent. There is no telling what they are capable of. Japan. It's a very safe country, but if you're trying to enjoy the nightlife, you have to watch out for shady promoters/scammers who will try to pull you into their bars and then steal your money. I will sum up the whole comment section. 1. The worst, most dangerous areas in every country. 2. Active war zones. 3. The middle of untamed wilderness. 4. Countries that no one in their right mind would consider to not seem dangerous. 5. Places that aren't countries.